you for joining Sertl Optics 360 Pulse. I am your host, Jennifer Sertl, Director of Marketing at Sertl Optics. 360 imaging is part of everyday life. Sertl Optics technology is being designed to accelerate the delivery of life-saving resources, ensure aerospace safety, enhance surveillance capabilities, and increase immersive experience participation. This podcast, 360 Pulse, is dedicated to featuring immersive technology and the innovators working on these capabilities. Our guest today is Scott Shtofman. Scott is a licensed attorney at Texas, a Part 107 certified remote pilot, OSHA 30 certified, and a member of multiple standard-setting organizations, including AUVSI, where I met him. He is the senior manager of grassroots advocacy and the chapters of the Association for Uncrewed Vehicles Systems International, which is AUVSI. His work at AUVSI, the largest nonprofit to the advancement of uncrewed system, is focused on advocacy at the state and federal levels through the management of their vast member and chapter network. I actually am the vice president of the Empire State Chapter, along with our president, John Cohen. And Scott really knows how to navigate the complexity of advanced drone operations from the inception to implementation, while also accepting public acceptance along the way. And his experience has been living before we even knew what AUVs were, and it was everyday conversation. He's been part of that. He was part of Quad Access LLC, which he founded and ran for more than 6 years. So, if you don't mind, Scott, welcome to the program first.
Yeah, well, thanks, Jennifer. It's happy to be here and happy to have you as part of the chapter. I really enjoy getting a chance to talk about what we do at AUVSI, kind of what my background is, and how we see the future of, drones and autonomous uncrewed systems as, being a part of our society, right?
Yeah. So let's go micro, then go macro.
Sure.
Given the fact that you actually founded and ran a company and had seen so many, I want to start with actually drones. Many of our listeners are from Genius New York and other accelerators wanting to optimize the robotic and drone industry, which is a $10 billion industry. And you have been part of several commercialization strategies. I'm wondering if you can share maybe 3 or 4 things that you've learned from that experience.
I'd say number one, because I'm in this stuff every single day and it feels like I've been doing it for years, that you need to have perspective, right? Like as long as we feel like things may have been dragging out, but like to so many people, what we're doing is still unfamiliar, right? We're still very early on in the development process of what these systems and all of the technology that comes along with them can do, right? When you look at how long we've had airplanes, you're talking about over 100 years of airplanes. So drones are still very new, especially for commercial use. And even the people who've been around longer than I have, 10 plus years on the commercial side, it's still very young. Like there's still a lot of potential. Also, you need to have some flexibility because since we're so young as an industry, we're still finding ways to disrupt or, enhance what people are using drones for. So you may go into a situation assuming you know what the drone's going to be good for or how it's going to work or how it's going to integrate with other stuff. And you might be really surprised, like, oh, it doesn't work that way. Or the people that are using different tools currently aren't willing or interested in accepting the drone in that way. Or they may come up with a different approach to how the drone can be helpful. I think a lot of people, especially that were coming in from outside of a lot of these industries like critical infrastructure inspection or working with first responders, were new to those avenues, right? And they came in and said, look, I'm the expert in drones. And they said, well, the drone for us is it's another tool, right? It's not, you don't come in and are automatically an expertise in our field. It's another thing that we want to use if it makes sense. So you need to make sure you have a good understanding of the clients that you're going after, or the people that you want to help, versus just coming in and saying, I know everything about this and my drone is going to fix all these things for you. So I think those are a few things that over the years have been really interesting and that have popped up. The other thing that I've found is that my legal background has been very helpful in this space, just because there's a lot of complexities outside of just operating the platforms themselves, and understanding that, not everybody is ready for drones, or they're worried about them, while some are really excited about them. And so while you're out flying, you may be moving around from city to city, county to county, state to state. and the rules can be different, and sort of understanding where the lines are on what are the base rules of operations at the federal level if you want to fly commercially under 107 versus, where can cities and states help to protect their constituents and help to protect you as a business owner, as a service provider.
Yeah, actually, that's one of the reasons that I wanted to, or actually Sertl wanted to be more a part of it is just because we know it's not only a huge market, but there's also so many safety issues. And so I noticed here that you're passionate about safe integration of drones in the national aerospace system through your work on beyond visual line of sight, which is often BVLOS. I know we are working on an application to help support a little camera visor that will help with 360 imaging. Can you talk a little bit about how you really got first into beyond visual line of sight?
Yeah, sure. I mean, one of the base requirements under Part 107, the rules that, mandate what commercial operators can and can't do is that the drone under normal circumstances has to be within the visual line of sight of the remote piloting command, right? So you can't fly it farther out than you can see it. But there are a lot of things where it would be helpful if we could do that. And so what are the things that we need to add to our operations or that we need to be aware of so that can be done safely? If you're flying low and close to an obstacle and, there aren't a lot of people or vehicles or things below where you're flying, that's a different risk picture than if you are flying over a crowded downtown in between buildings and things like that. So understanding how to assess the different operations that you're doing and also what's the utility of what you're providing. Is it really helpful for you to be beyond visual line of sight, or could you move from, spot to spot and still get the same benefit with the operation? So when we talk to the FAA on these things, when we talk to local governments, the concern is making sure that we maintain the safest national airspace system, right? Because we don't want to put traditional aviation at risk that are other, operators that are in the airspace that are flying where the drones are flying, or people on the ground or property on the ground at risk. And so you really have to have that full picture to understand when beyond visual line of sight makes sense, when there's, real benefit to it, and sort of what all needs to be added on to the normal within visual line of sight operation to keep it just as safe.
I never thought of this before, but it's almost as if from a scenario planning perspective, we have to have beyond visual line of sight for beyond visual line of sight and all of these other components of it. I'm really interested in what's so great about having you as a guest is that you are both a founder and then you've just kind of created a path to be, an expert in advocacy. Can you talk to us about how did that transition occur?
So originally I came to drones because we had the benefit of being able to build our own house. And a friend of mine gave me an old Phantom that he had. And I found out about, the commercial side of things. I just wanted to keep track of how our house was coming along. And then I realized, people will actually pay me to do that. Right? And so I got into doing some of the residential side. I mean, I did hundreds of roof inspections out here in East Texas, driving all over the place as we had, various hail and tornadoes and all that kind of stuff. And then also got drawn in on the commercial side with larger construction, like big warehouses, 1 million square feet that we're going to take a year plus to put together, where if you have like investors or operators who are running things from afar, they were able to see what was going on. And so I understood that. And then as you get into the sort of more complex operations, you see, well, I need to have a better understanding of what the rules are or how the rules need to change to make it easier for me to be able to do those things and how to explain that. And so early on as well, if you wanted to fly in controlled airspace, you needed to go reach out to the FAA. You had to go through these sort of complex applications to be able to fly in your airports. The land system didn't exist, right? You couldn't fly at night unless you had a waiver. And all these were sort of the things you could and could not waive under the Part 107 rules. And so I started to see that. I also was hearing about before even Part 107 existed, there was Part 333, which you had to have some sort of aircraft, like I fly some sort of traditional aircraft license to be able to fly drones commercially. And a lot of the times people were dealing with attorneys to help them go through that application process to really spell out what their concept of operations was, why they were safe, why they should be able to do it. And so I saw an opportunity to be able to bring my interest and love for drones and then also my background on the legal side to really help advance what people could be and could not do with drones.
You know, what's so exciting about your story here is that you were doing something that you were both competent about and enjoyed doing, right? And the market is so young that anyone out there just, do what you love and do it, better than other people, or do it in a way that helps educate other people. And you might actually find your path. Did I get that right?
Absolutely. I think for me, when I got more involved in going to conferences and being a part of my local AUVSI Lone Star chapter, it helped me really sort of understand what the opportunity was, right? Because early on, it was just, let's see what the playing field actually looks like. And I didn't know what the opportunity was. I just knew that there was something. And that, as the time passed and as I talked to more and more people, read more and more things, got more and more involved in operations, I understood that there was a need. Some people were serving it, but not everybody, right? And so I think that it was really great for me being involved with my local chapter, getting out to the conferences and meeting people and listening to the existing experts who may not have the sort of practical field experience that I've had being out there flying drones commercially all around the United States, versus those that are really sort of hill savvy, understand the politics and how to navigate those halls. And so I think that being a part of a team that has both of those things has been really enlightening, and we've been having a lot of good success over the last year. So it's really exciting. And I think we're just getting started.
Yeah, I almost feel like the analogy that I'm feeling is almost like catching a wave in California, right? You feel like you have a lot of anticipation. You see it coming. You're trying to get your feet secure so that you don't tip over. But it is a lot of anticipation, a lot of excitement, which is so great. I would like us. There's kind of a two-part question. One is, why is advocacy so important? And then, what is drone prepared? So I think we need to lay the context of why should people care? I think right now in Empire State, I think we have 100 members, and our goal is to get them more active. Why is it important that they become more active?
Well, I think as much as I said early on, like we think that everybody understands what we're doing with drones, but they don't. There's a lot of those sort of big headlines. We hear about things like drone delivery or air taxis that really provide some public view of what drones are doing versus what the average operator is doing, whether you're building your own equipment and you're trying to integrate with other things, or you want to be a part of that sort of broader ecosystem of what drones can do, and you're running a business and you're trying to get your name out there. So I think that advocacy is a great way to be able to tell your story, as well as to get across if something would be problematic from a lawmaking standpoint. Let's say a well-intentioned lawmaker hears from a constituent that doesn't like drones or had a bad experience with drones. As a result, that, a bad law gets floated as something that we want to prevent operations over residential areas without any, landowner permission. And understanding the nuance of what state can and cannot do from a powers perspective, understanding what the federal government can and can't do, and why it's important to know where those lines are, that it's not just about the federal government can tell you what to do. It's about, let's keep the airspace as safe as possible. Let's put in place operating requirements that are consistent so that when commercial entities want to come into a new place, they know what the lay of the land is going to be. They know that they're not going to run into different rules from city to city, from county to county, from state to state. Or if they are, they have a really clear line of what that looks like. And so getting involved in advocacy is a way for you to be able to tell your own specific story about that, how the what's being proposed relates to you, and how it could help you or hurt you as a constituent, as a business owner, as a taxpayer. So really providing that grassroots version of the picture resonates a lot with lawmakers, especially if you're talking about those that are elected, or even if you're working with law enforcement. So they have a good understanding of like, look, I'm not out here to do bad things. I'm not saying that everybody that wants to fly a drone is out to do something good, but the overwhelming majority, especially those that are commercially licensed or commercially certificated, are. And then there are plenty of people that are out, want to fly recreationally just because they love the experience, either of watching the drone fly or of building a remote controlled aircraft or a flying first person view with goggles, right? There's a lot of really good recreational things that you can do with drones alongside the commercial side. And so for me, when we get to Drone Prepared, that is our 50-state advocacy campaign to open the door to lawmakers and help them understand what's a good way for us to situate our state to be ready for drones, to be really commercially understanding, and with a set of rules that are vetted by industry, as well as have had a background check, and really a lot of intelligent people from aviation law have been involved in helping us develop that. Our confidants over at Wiley, they're attorneys in DC. They have a ton of aviation experience. They look at sort of the legal history of how has regulation happened in the NAS, and how have people really worked in, developing traditional aviation, crewed aviation, normal airplanes and things like that, cargo or passenger delivery, from the, first planes that were developed in barns and things like that, right? So how do we get from a completely nascent industry to a huge viable economic boom that we have now? And so how can we get drones in a place where it's similar to that? How can we plan out for the next 5 to 10 years and not have to go out in every state and fight really bad bills? One of the ways that I got involved with AUVSI was as a chapter leader fighting these bad things called navigation easement laws in the air. So taking drones and trying to force them into these toll roads in the sky, saying, it's the safest way for you to fly is specifically in these lanes in the sky, versus getting the benefit of what drones can do by flying as the crow flies, by not being stuck on roads or stuck by traffic lights, but really working with each other. And then also, a number of these lawmakers were sold the idea that they'd be able to monetize the airspace by charging these user fees or taxes while drones are flying. And I think down the line, maybe, but right now, not at all. There's, this industry is not receiving a lot of benefits from infrastructure that's being put in place. Drones don't need air traffic control right now, given the operations that we're doing, given the areas where we're flying. Eventually, we might get to a point where we're doing that, when we're really integrated. But our goal was to help understand, let's get consistent laws in place across states by starting, number one, with state level preemption, so that you're not having cities and counties putting in laws that they think are well-intentioned, but they're not really housed inside those areas of expertise in states like departments of transportation or departments of aviation. That's not to say that cities and counties don't have a place to make rules. It's just understanding what those rules looks like. Let's leave air navigation safety and the actual operations of drones to the FAA. They're the ones that certify drone pilots. They're the ones that work with traditional aviation. They handle the national airspace system. And then let's also not pass a bunch of drone laws, that are specific to adding all of these crimes, right? If it's a crime without the drone, flying it with the drone doesn't make it any different. If you took the drone away and you were spying on someone, it's still a crime if you use the drone. So we don't need 50 more drone specific laws in a state. It's a waste of lawmakers' time. It's a waste of the people's time, and it makes it more complicated for law enforcement. I think one of the things that we established with Drone Prepared is, let's lean back on those existing laws. Let's make it a crime with the drone without sort of enumerating a whole bunch of other ones. But in general, like I said, the base idea with Drone Prepared is just a way for us to start conversations, right? We have a lot of expertise with our members, with our association about drones and about how they can work well with the public. And so we just wanted to open doors, right? And that's what we did starting at the end of last year.
A lot of industry organizations have a lot of education and a lot of community, but what you're actually doing is galvanizing the future. In a way, it's exciting to be part of something where you can actually help shape the future in such an explicit way. Two kind of key indicators of the kind of mainstream of the drones is that, obviously, I don't know if you watched The Mayor of Kingstown. But they've recently, did you, I think either episode.
I know the guy that was getting punched in the face that was flying the drone. I flew drones with him out in California, Johnny Tremba. Yeah.
Now listen, that's a spoiler alert. But I just it never occurred to me, in that particular episode, there was someone that was delivering cocaine into a prison by way of a drone. And it's one of those things where, one is that it's the first time I've actually seen an episode entitled Drones, where the drone was the epicenter of the storyline. And the idea of, different scenarios that had never occurred. And then all of a sudden now it's like, geez, all the copycat, just that the governance question. The other was just the fact that there's now drone soccer. There's now just amazing, I think gaming lounges. There's incredible competitions. And so this is, a community isn't just for drone pilots. It's just a lot of excitement, and it's certainly important. Like, again, I think why I'm so excited to be at Sertl Optics is being able to say we're working on a technology that actually can make it safer, because the governance piece is always a lag, right? There's the idea, things happen, and then there's a law, and then there's following the law, which is kind of the second thing. Last thing I'd love for you to talk about is Hill Day. We are going soon to Washington. Can you talk just briefly about what that's about?
Yeah, so Hill Day is a chance for us to bring our organizational advocacy level members. These are your usually larger companies, whether you're talking about startups like a Skydio on up to some of the largest defense primes in the United States. And it gives us a chance to also then bring in our chapter leaders, like the Empire chapter, to New York, from New York to come into DC, meet with lawmakers, and deal with understanding sort of what are our priorities. What do we want to see happen in DC to help enable or help bring broader acceptance to our industry? So, the awareness on the federal side is that because 2023 is a year we're going to pass, hopefully, a new FAA reauthorization bill. And so what that is the 5-year, hopefully, bill that funds and directs the FAA for the next 5 years. And there are a lot of interests that go into a bill like that. It's similar to the budget bills that we see passed around helping run the country. This is essentially the budget bill for the FAA, but it also has a lot of mandates in it on things that they can do to better enable or better keep our industry safe. And so we work on putting together a lot of educational and priority papers that can be spoken to by our members as you're going into, members of Congress and speaking to them or speaking to their legislative team. You want to help quickly get them up to speed on what the issues are, what are ways that they can help, and not just go in there and complain. So it gives us a chance to work with the relationships that we have built on the Hill to find ways that they can enable what we're doing and what our members are doing in a meaningful way over the next 5 years. Alongside, if you have local interests that the Empire chapter is concerned with, how can you speak to your members? If you're going to go in and talk to Schumer, what is something that you can say to him and to his team that would be helpful to the state of New York that he can affect from DC? There are a lot of government programs that put together grants for things like inspections or education or equipment, and even around things like counter UAS, so around detection, making states and cities feel more comfortable with the use of drones. And so it's really a way for us to bring together all of these people, all of this expertise in one place to then direct Congress to help, right? What are ways that they can ask us questions if they don't understand something? What are ways that we can provide them with true solutions?
The idea of learning how to advocate and organizing thoughts around priorities for a region, I think whether you're in med tech or whether you're in environmental issues or whether you're in deep tech technology, it's a skill to be able to champion an idea in a way that someone can take action on it. So I think it's a skill set. I think that we all need, and I'm so thankful to be able to kind of be on that learning curve with you. You've been listening to Scott Shtofman from AUVSI. You're certainly going to be hearing more and more about Drone Prepared, and you're certainly going to hear what I learned from Hill Day. Thanks for being with us, Scott. Thank you for all of you for joining us today. I'd like to thank the Institute of Optics, Genius New York, Luminate Accelerator, AFWorks, Cider Technologies, Archangel Imaging, and AUVSI for being part of our community. Special mention to our producer, Scott Fitzgerald at Rock Fox Studios here in the heart of optics expertise in Rochester, New York. By all means, we hope you subscribe to our program. Find us on Twitter and LinkedIn. We're very interested in how immersive technology positively impacts safety and human connection. And if you know a story we should feature or guest that can further this conversation, let me know. You can reach me at Jennifer@sertloptics.com.